So you were really in the Shark Tank, right? Like Long Island was more like a little pond, you know, like you were in the midst of that crazy dog eat dog or Shark Tank, sharks eating each other, that Red Sea. What was something that made you realize that, this is maybe not for me? This is not the purpose. This is not why I'm on this planet. Was there a specific moment? Can you bring us back to that moment where you felt like this is a little bit more disappointing than I thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's kind of why we're here today, because the genesis of London Real was me coming to the terms with the fact that money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah.
And I convinced myself as a kid that when I was rich, I would be happy. And I don't know if that's the American dream. I wouldn't blame America for that. But for some reason, I had convinced myself of that. So I had one goal, to make as much money as possible. That's why a lot of people go to Wall Street. And after, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, you actually start figuring out what the hell you're doing. You're not just a punk kid anymore. And the money starts to roll in. And that started happening to me, and I started learning, and I moved to London and started working in credit derivatives. And I started becoming wealthy and also realizing it wasn't making me happy, because I wasn't going after all my internal demons. I wasn't also serving anybody else. I wasn't contributing. And it was literally just making me more and more miserable. And so, look, God bless if that's what you choose and that's your life and that makes you happy. But for me, I finally figured out there was very little correlation between the next bonus I got and how good I felt about myself. And it got to a point where I was 40 years old. I was alone in my really expensive flat in Shoreditch. I was depressed. I didn't have any friends. I was drinking myself to death. And yet, on paper, on LinkedIn, I looked like this super successful person with a great title, with millions of dollars in the bank. And something in me said, you got to do something different, or you're just going to, I don't know, die. So I think I took a meditation course. And after that course, I said to myself, you better do something different. And so that was the genesis of London Real. And so I've been there. I spent 15 years in the financial industry in these hardcore trading floors. And I understand the banking system really, really well. And I just know that that is not the path to happiness. And a lot of people discover this, whether you're a musician or an Instagram influencer or a Wall Street trader, the money, the prize will never bring you the happiness. It always has to be in service of others or personal growth. There's got to be those factors, or I don't think you're happy. So London Real was my, my last-ditch attempt to maybe change that. I had no idea it would bring me here, but I knew I had to do something different. So that was like my big come to Jesus moment, I guess you would say.
Come to Jesus moment. And it kind of like, it was your darkest times, as you were saying, right? You were really reflecting and what the hell am I going to do? But you fell in love with London. Like, you just look around us, you can see the flag and you're so happy here. What makes London so special to you? Almost like a new identity, a new Brian Rose.
New York kicked my ass, and we'll talk about like some of the things I got myself into in New York. It always crushed me, from a personal standpoint to the way I treated myself to drugs and addiction. And I struggled to have success in that city. And maybe because I hadn't come to terms with myself. But every time I came to London, I don't know, I created something of value. I don't know, I see opportunity here. I always felt as an immigrant, I could do it better. I don't know, we just had this, and London is a place that I think rewards that. So, it was always that place that, I don't know, brought me joy and success. And so as weird as it sounds, there's a kid from California that finds this place my home. And I was in a really dark place back then, and I needed a change. And it was I pulled the ripcord is what I did. I walked into my managing director and I quit. There was no plans for London Real. There was no plans for a podcast. I just knew I had to do something different. And that was a real low moment for me, trying to figure out what was next. My identity was all wrapped up in that as well. And now I was nothing. So that first year, 2011, was a difficult time. But that's when this idea came up.